when you're trying to adopt a new lifestyle, a new pattern, something new in your life, you have to make room for it. And what I mean is that you have to sacrifice something. If you want to start working out early in the morning, you have to either sacrifice sleep or going to work late or doing whatever that might be. And if you don't make that intentional room for that activity, you're going to smother that activity before it even begins.
Welcome to Strategy in Action, where we reveal how industry leaders build real market gravity, the force that naturally attracts opportunities, partnerships, and profits. You get raw insights, proven frameworks, and strategies that actually move the needle in your business. Let's get started. Raj Daniels is on the show today, and he is my next talk in this Power Traits series that I'm doing. He's a dear friend. We've known each other for, a decade now, at least. Back from my startup Dallas days, the first show I ever did, and that amazing community, getting to know Raj and being at Big DOCC every Tuesday morning for so many years was such a blast. And his power trait is consistency. I'll venture to say he has multiple power traits for sure, and you'll see a lot of them, like connection and intentionality and thoughtfulness. But the one we focus on today is this idea of consistency. And honestly, Raj is the first person I thought of when I was going to do this Power Trait series, because it's this skill that I've seen him have and execute on in so many different endeavors, from writing to podcasting to business. And it's so powerful. And like with my buddy who his power trait being rigor, right? I see these power traits in folks so much because I feel like I lack them. I see the value in them and work towards doing a little better with those. And Raj is definitely an aspect of that. That idea of consistency and being so purposeful to day in and day out do something that you've committed to, either directionally or as an end goal. It's so powerful, and it's the key to success in anything. And it's one of the harder things to do because we can't always see, where's this going? Why am I doing this again? Day in and day out. And to keep doing that over and over, so you even have the opportunity to look up a year from now, 10 years from now, and go, that's why I was doing it. Or, look what we've done because I did this every day for the last 10 years or every week, whatever that may be. So powerful conversation. Raj is an amazing human being, and you'll see that and feel that in this episode for sure. All right, let's jump in. Raj Daniels, my friend, welcome back to the show.
Jason, great to see you.
Oh, this is so fun. This has been a long time coming, both in this particular episode and what we're talking about here, but also just having you back on the show from episode 1 to now 100 plus. It's about time that Raj is back on the show.
Episode 1 to 100 plus. Previously, what was it called? In Cars. Entrepreneurs in Cars? What were we called, Jason?
It was the Jason Croft Show. Come on.
Jason Croft Show. That's right. In the car.
That's right. Episode 1 of that.
And prior to that, the studio.
That's right. Startup Dallas.
Yes, sir.
Well, I want to set this up for folks, certainly to have you on so many reasons. I mean, we used to talk every week, and
we did.
we could certainly talk and have you on the show every week just to talk about life and the world, and it would be amazing. But this particular conversation, I wanted to have you on in this Power Traits series that I've been doing, because you're one of those people that I identified when I first thought of this series as having this core trait that I see over and over again. And for you, it's consistency. And if anybody's tried to accomplish anything in life, whether they use it or not, they know That real, true consistency is so powerful. I mean, it's the secret behind compound interest, right? Like it's that aspect of things, to have that patience and to not just wait, but have the patience and do over and over and over again. And I want to dig in for folks so they know what you've got going on, who you are, but I really want to have this conversation because I have seen it firsthand in you, this superpower of consistency, from writing to podcasting to business, and really get from you how you've seen that and why it's there and what that's brought about in your world because of it. But right now, today, I know we have our history back in startup days, in the Dallas world for sure. And you've done so much. And right now, your current role is as in the U.S. India Chamber of Commerce, running that. Like, what? That's so amazing. And it's being president of that. It and it's so fitting, such a great role because yes, we're going to talk a lot about consistency today, but also you are an amazing connector
I appreciate
and
you.
putting people and pieces together. That role makes so much sense. So, biggest opening giant question intro in the history of podcast. I'll let you talk now. We have about 3 minutes left. You can talk, but yeah, jump in. Tell us what's happening right now with your role there and your other endeavors.
So, yes, currently have the pleasure, the humility to serve as the president of the U.S. India Chamber of Commerce, DFW. It's the largest Indian chamber in the nation. We have over 200 member companies. I like to say we punch above our body weight because when I say member companies, it could be, a small IT operation with a few employees, all the way through to DFW Airport, New York Life, Southwest Airlines, and many other enterprises. So we're probably able to connect with many thousand people, through our newsletters, through our events. Last year, we did over 15 events, 4 what I call major, and then 1 is our capstone. So the major events usually get about 400 people in the room. It's a women's forum, a tech forum, a health forum, business expo, and then we did our annual awards banquet last year. We got over 800 people in the room. So in real life, we bring together over 2,500 people, maybe even more than that. It's been a great experience. I've been there about a year and a half, maybe a little longer than that. Last year, we were able to grow the chamber membership by over 27%, able to grow revenues in a similar fashion. But the most important part to me regarding that, and going back to our days, and Jason, you brought this up, is the ability to get my arms around a community. Something you alluded to earlier about speaking every week. We used to be part of or run, the Big Dallas Open Coffee Club. Shout out, Michael. And again, just being able to engage community, help community, provide value for community. And when I say community, like I said, you know me, it's not just the Indian community, it's across the board. If I can bring 2 people together, I love my inbox. I can look at it at the end of the week, or my outbox at the end of the week, and I say, X person meet Y person. If I've done it many times throughout the week, I feel like I'm leading, my purpose and why I'm here and doing what I'm doing.
Oh yeah. You're such a master at it. And that it is such a purposeful skill too. I think some of these things get categorized by other people as just like, oh yeah, Raj is just great at that. Well, he is, but he's also purposeful at that. He's intentional with that. And that's something I admire so much in you is that thoughtfulness about what you do, and what you do includes bringing people together. Such a purposefulness in that I just love. I want to make sure I've got this down also in 2025, listed by CEO magazine as one of the 500 most influential people in Dallas. Are you kidding me?
People believe stuff they read. I don't even know.
I love that. Host of a podcast, Bigger Than Us podcast, taking a little break now with that, but that's come into play. That's been so consistent. The book you wrote, the newsletter, Big DOCC, you had the newsletter for that weekly. How many years of that?
8 years. And just to make people aware, that's unpaid labor of love, 8 years. In fact, I met someone last year at a meeting, and they're like, "Are you the same Raj Daniels that used to write the big DOCC newsletter?" So I still run into subscribers. It became the second most read tech newsletter in DFW.
Wow. Let's get into that specifically. Where do you think that comes from? That consistency, and when did you first lean into that and like, oh, this is really important. I'm going to focus on that.
So I'm going to take a slightly different angle towards this question. You didn't know me 30 plus years ago, maybe a little longer. I used to weigh 260 pounds and had a 44-inch waist.
Wow.
And I remember the first time I walked into the gym, for those of you who are out there listening, I was wearing a pair of Jams and a Spuds McKenzie t-shirt.
That puts the date perfectly into
260-ish pounds. And I said, this is not going to be me any longer. And I've been around hundreds of people over the last, 30 odd years who've lost weight. But do you know that the recidivism in weight loss is greater than drugs, alcohol, you name it? People gain the weight back, if not in a year, then 2 years, 3 years eventually. And so I took that example from there. For me, it's not about the weight loss. It's about every day the decision or the identity of who I want to be. And so I align myself with a mantra that I have, an identity of who I want to be. And every day I look at myself through that lens. And what I found I could do is that I could adopt that behavior for one part of my life, and I could apply it to other parts of my life. And it's interesting you're bringing this up because I have 3 daughters and I have this conversation with them quite often. Actually, on my website, I'm noodling out loud on my website right now about your capacity to endure boredom is the denominator for everything. Your capacity to endure boredom, consistency, is the denominator for a long-term marriage, weight loss, saving money, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. And what I found is that people want the new shiny, people want the get rich, people want the just add water, overnight millionaire, quick oats. I don't even know what that is. But, and one's ability to endure that continuously. And sometimes you have faith in your activity of what you're doing, but you don't have the attachments to the results. And so I'm noodling this out loud, but I feel like consistency, or perhaps said differently, is your ability to, accept boredom as part of your life or part of the adventure.
Yeah, that is I think, hand in hand difficult piece of it that comes with consistency to get to a bigger goal. One piece is that boredom. That other piece you touched on is not knowing am I doing what I'm doing every single day going to get me to that? We could probably do a laundry list of what that takes, both from judging the results along the way enough, but also having that voice, having the who's done it before, who's guiding, who's got the accountability, not just to keep doing it, but am I doing the right thing? If I'm practicing something the wrong way a million times, that doesn't make me good at it. It makes me proficient in doing something the wrong way. So how do you, as you pick this goal and you're going to do that, hey, this is something I'm going to do you pick a certain amount of time when you go through that? And then how do you figure out milestones along the way?
So I think it depends on the endeavor. I do some endeavors as labors of love. You mentioned the big DOCC newsletter, which was, just a labor of love that I did for 8 years every Tuesday. And it led to people reaching out, people building my network. Some might say, oh, it didn't lead to any financial goal, but I think, we've come too far to measure everything by a financial goal. It led to a network, it led to a community, it led to us being able to come together. My blog post, you mentioned my writing earlier. I've published over 1,000 blog posts. 2 years into writing those blog posts, someone said you should write a book. I'm going to give you a real specific journey here. Someone said you should write a book and do a compendium of your blog post. I said, why? They said, we're enjoying them. I said, okay, fair enough. So I published the book, you recall, 2017. 2018, I got called 4 different times to speak at organizations, and I did book signings. I didn't know the blog post was going to lead to a book, to lead to book signings. And then people hired me subsequently after that. Looking back, you can connect the dots, as they say, but looking forward, you can't. So sometimes you do these activities. Now, on the other hand, regarding, let's say, perhaps a financial goal or weight loss goal or something along those lines, right now, you and I are sitting here as iterations of nature. We are proofs of evolution, that some things went right, some things went right, some things went right, and here we are today. And so when it comes to perhaps a financial goal, or let's say a goal at the chamber, a membership goal, and you can track and say, okay, what does that iteration look like? What happened? What did we learn? What can we do differently? How can we pivot slightly, but not too much? But, I tell the words I use to my kids, and my kids get tired of hearing this, is that, kids, you need to be directionally correct. And that's what I tell myself too. And that, if I can see progress to some extent, and I can see that, okay, I can make a little bit of a pivot here, or perhaps this didn't work, not anything too drastic, right? And you've heard the adage so many times about, an airplane is off track 80% of the time till it reached its goal, right? And so am I. But the like I said, the 2 different exercises I use, one is, let me just do this, see what happens. So think about blog, think about Big Deal CC newsletter. And the other one is that, okay, I've got a financial goal or, a membership goal that I'm really driving towards. What are we doing to iterate and make changes on the way to that? And how close can we come to that?
I think those are 2 really distinct camps of what we're talking about. Certainly the second one, you talked about the goal aspect. We want to accomplish this. And that has those markers, and let's evaluate, okay, what did we do the last year? Are we directionally correct still? Does this make sense? It's almost the art and science, the 2 camps, right? It's like that first one's more art. It's like, I don't know what this is, but this speaks to me. I'm gonna go this direction. I don't know what it could lead to, but there's a fulfillment there. It becomes figuring out how to develop those skills to trust yourself and to listen. And who do you surround yourself with, so that if you do have that inkling, the people around you go, yeah, you should do that. That'd be pretty cool. That becomes a bigger thing. I think you and I both, we're so immersed in, the people and the knowledge of just getting better, improving. That's our language. We talk about that. We talk to other people who are like that. If that is even foreign for folks, where do they start to even trust that inkling a little bit and get directionally correct in something, do you think?
So, being around the startup scene for 15, 16 years now, I've seen that there's a question that I've heard so often that I think is, to some extent, and obviously there's room for debate here, is, how are you going to make money doing that? And I think of that question many times as a dream killer. I think people second guess themselves, and they don't allow themselves to just experiment. And I'm not saying, jump in both feet or put everything on the line, but allow yourself to do a few little small side experiments, and then find your community. I can tell you till today, I know a lot of my stuff that I might say sounds delusional, but I can tell you till today, I know exactly when I was going to launch my startup, I was thinking about, who do I reach out to? What do I do? It was 2013, 2014 timeframe. And I was pulling my car out the garage, and for some reason I had NPR on, and there was a guy from the Dallas startup community by the name of Bradley. I don't know if you remember him.
Bradley Joyce?
Yep.
Yeah.
Bradley Joyce.
Fantastic photographer now. Did you know
was
that?
On NPR that day, just happened to be talking about the Dallas startup ecosystem.
Wow.
So I know, if you seek, you will find there's that adage, but I'm a huge believer in that. And so whatever interest, I have a friend now, he's a mentor, Jim Shields, runs Shields Legal Group. And he said he has a sign on his desk that his father had on his desk, and it says, begin and the rest is easy. And I don't believe the rest is easy, but begin is the hard part, right? Inertia. And so whatever interest, whatever project, whatever you might be thinking about, just begin, and begin with what you have at your fingertips. I still have the same website for the last 10 years that I've had because it's the one I know how to run, and people still visit that website. I have notebooks and pens and papers here. You don't need the new technology. You don't need, if I were to ask you just now, let's go back to the weight loss thing. Jason, how do you lose weight? You'd probably come back with some answer of, you eat less and work out more, right? You just begin with what you have, right? And so whatever that inkling that you have, if you can carve out 20 minutes, 30 minutes to trust yourself and start pursuing that as a passion, as an idea, as a project, with, again, going back to not looking for a specific outcome, I think that's that biggest piece of, begin and the rest is easy.
I've certainly erred on the other side too much, because I think there's a piece of that. If you're going to go down this road, if you're going to start a podcast, if you're going to start a new business, it's going to take so much, because yes, it's hard to start. The rest is not easy. It's going to take so much going down that road. I'm always quick with, okay, great. How are you going to keep this going? And a lot of times that is the revenue piece. How's it going to make money? Otherwise, it's not going to continue, right? But to your point, if you only have the lens through that and you don't have the exact answer of how it's going to make money, you'll never get to that chance. You'll never get started. You'll never get down the road to find yourself 3 miles down and go, oh, that's it. Perfect. Now I interacted with this person, or they asked for this. I had no idea. And I wouldn't have any idea if I was still back at square one going, let me think of all the ways this might work. So much of that. You talk about getting directionally correct, and direction is forward sometimes. And then, oh yeah, you can veer off here and go there. But the amount of time spent in the garage thinking about, oh, one day I'll go somewhere, man, that's the killer.
And sometimes you're building a bank account, but sometimes you're building a reputation. When I was running the podcast actively in 2023 and 2024, specifically in the arts and science category, the Bigger Than Us podcast beat BBC in 5 markets. And it's me running the podcast from here, and BBC with their entire production studio. And I can guarantee you, when I reach out to my next guest, who's the CEO of whatever company that might be, he or she's going to look at that and say, absolutely, I'd love to be on your show. Because I built a reputation, or, I had built a catalog of 150 or 170 episodes, and people see the who's and who that's been on there, and then I've done what in certain markets.
That's an interesting point too. What are those activities that you can do when you don't yet know exactly what you want to go and do? And I think a lot of these that you've done, some that I've done, are these great reputation building, but also just relationship building activities. If you don't quite know, I don't know if I want to start a business. I don't know if I want to do this. But generally, back to that first bucket, that art bucket, is there's something speaking to me in this world. When you go and start a newsletter from scratch in that world, or a podcast, and you start meeting people, or your local meetup group and just start showing up, that's when those things, it gets the juices, but you get immersed in that world. And now, like with the Bigger Than Us podcast, for you, let's say something comes down the pipe tomorrow, this opportunity of an investment or whatever that might be, or, oh, I need to introduce this person and that person, and there's a big piece for you if it comes. And now you've got this database of who to go to and either put people together, or, oh, wow, Bill, who was running that organization, he'll know exactly what I should do. And all of those things, they aren't prescriptive. You can't sit down and here's the plan to go and do all of that. But all of these things with this consistency aspect all lead to be able to look back and see, oh, this is how they all connected. And that's hard to give advice, but
Just happened last Friday afternoon, previous Friday, we were in a meeting with the EarthX group here in Dallas, and I met the new CEO of the EarthX group. His name is Peter, and he was asking about who do we know that could be good potential speakers. And I said, go look through the catalog of Bigger Than Us. There's someone there that you think could be interesting. Let me know. I'm happy to make that introduction.
And that's a win on both sides. It's not just like, oh, EarthX wins because they get to talk. Well, the other person gets to be highlighted there. It's beautiful. And I love those real life, tangible examples of that too. I remember back then in those days, I used to keep track of it, I introduced this person to this person and this is what happened. I mean, it got away from me really, really, really quickly to keep up with it, but I kept track of it because it was so much joy. Like that was so fulfilling to connect people. And now something new is off in the world because these two people got introduced. I love that stuff. Maybe it's on the second bucket. And if you don't know, you've got this goal in mind, you hear it all the time, consistency. What do I do consistently? How do we help people kind of break that down? They've got this milestone goal. They want to reach this into this idea to even let in the fact that, I need to be consistent with it and you do it. But how do I even know what to do?
Fortunately, we live in a world where information is abundant. And I think to some extent we're spoiled for choice. I love reading biographies of people from 100 years ago. And it could be, the industrialists, the Carnegies of the world, the Vanderbilts of the world. Most recently, I finished what I consider to be an amazing biography of Mark Twain. Still 100 years later is considered America's author. And you think back to a time where he was writing longhand on legal pads, all his writing until the typewriter came along, and so I think it's not complicated about where to start and how to start. I think it's the coming back to starting. But I also think, we've touched on it too about surrounding yourself with people that are on a similar journey. I think is really important. We talk about the startup ecosystem here. We talk about the podcast ecosystem, but surrounding yourself with people who are on a similar journey. The challenging part about that, and I've experienced this in my life a few times, is that you will have to leave some people behind. Many times people can't appreciate that or can't accept that. Let's go to the weight loss again. If you're trying to lose weight, you don't want to be in a bar every night eating fast food. If you're trying to quit drinking, you don't want to be going out to happy hour with your friends. If you're trying to set off on a new journey, there are only a few people that are going to go on that journey with you. The rest of you have to leave behind. That doesn't mean you don't love them anymore. I've had friends of mine that I've known for 30, 40 years who I still keep in touch with once in a while, but we've all gone different directions. We want different things out of life. And so if someone is really committed to an endeavor, they're going to have to take time to, and I'm going to use this word, it may not be the correct word, they're going to have to take time to perhaps mourn that relationship and come to that person and say, hey, look, this is what I'm trying to do. This is where I want to go. I would love your support, but if not, I love you, but I need to go do this. There's a lot of talk about habits and new habits and how to, again, a lot of this stuff I'm going to share with you. I tell my girls, I said, one of the things that people neglect to realize is that when you're trying to adopt a new lifestyle, a new pattern, something new in your life, you have to make room for it. And what I mean is that you have to sacrifice something. If you want to start working out early in the morning, you have to either sacrifice sleep or going to work late or doing whatever that might be. If you're, trying to write, you have to sacrifice. There's 168 hours in a week. You have to pick where you're going to sacrifice, what you're going to do. And if you don't make that intentional room for that activity, you're going to smother that activity before it even begins. And so taking that intentional step What am I going to sacrifice in order to go down this journey, in order to adopt this new habit, this new routine? I think is a really important part that I see people skip over all the time. In December, they have that conversation about, I'm going to start going to the gym in January. And I ask them, what are you going to give up? And eyes go big. What do you mean? What am I going to give up? Well, I mean, you don't go right now. You need an hour to go. What are you going to do with that hour? Is it one less time with your kids, your wife, your work, your sleep? Where's it going to come from? And so I think that's a really important part about as they start on that journey. What am I going to mourn? What am I going to give up?
It sounds obvious when you sit there and we have this conversation like this, and you're like, well, yeah, of course you have to give a, but so few of us do it. So few of us get intentional, because even if in best case scenario you have the willpower to power through and you do keep up with that habit, but you weren't intentional with what you're going to give up, well, then something's going to fall off that maybe you didn't want to fall off because you're powering through. So either way, if you're going to keep up with it or if you want to stay in control of it, sit down and just coming to terms with it, realizing, okay, I do have to give up something with that. And I know for some folks, whether it's extended family or their friend group, they couldn't imagine, walking away or spending less time with those folks in order to accomplish that. And that is such a massive driver to stay stuck in that cycle. I mean, I don't know, maybe it's just different personality types. I think it's a combo of, that's an easier thing for me, always has been. I don't know why. Maybe there's something wrong with me, but that's an easier thing to break off when necessary. But it's also, gosh, I mean, most of my life, I have been around those folks who are, oh yeah, oh, that's awesome. You're doing that? Oh, that's super cool. And I'm haven't been surrounded with people who are, oh, that's stupid, right? And all that negative talk. So I haven't had to bust out of it either. I think it's a great way to frame that. I appreciate that answer so much. That it's less about what do I do? It's how am I going to go execute on what I need to do day in and day out. That's strong.
If you think about, let's just use an exaggerated example. If someone's planning to go climb Everest, they don't take their best friends. They find the best Sherpas, the best guides, right? People that have kind of done that before. It's not like, hey, Jason, I'm going to climb Everest. You're going to come with me? If I think nothing against you.
Yeah, but and even if they do go find the Sherpa stuff, they also don't bring their friends along. The
Right.
friends who have never done anything and have no interest in going to Everest, they don't try to drag them along. Do you think there's a downside to that consistency that you've had at all?
100%. There always is. And I mean, it could be something as simple as I go to bed 9:30, 10 p.m. My kids are still awake. I miss time with them in the evenings. But am I willing to sacrifice not waking up at 5:30 in the morning, meditating, going to the gym, doing those things? Because I know those things make me a better person and allow me as a father to show up better for them. Or, is it perhaps I don't attend a certain event or I don't do a certain thing because I wanted to be doing something else with my time? So absolutely a downside. Now, I think it depends also how you measure a downside. I don't have that FOMO gene, fortunately. In fact, I was joking with a friend recently. I have that JOMO gene, the joy of missing out. Wait, I wasn't invited? Oh, my word. Oh, no. So I have more of that, which is sometimes a point of contention in my marriage. But you know what? My wife knows me now. We're 20 years in this year. So she knows, when the events I want to go to and don't want to go to. So we've kind of come to that understanding. But yeah, I mean, I have a genetic predisposition to doing what I like to do and getting done what I like to get done.
You think this was there? I mean, you mentioned that weight loss journey where that first showed up. Do you see it as a kid, even back, any little consistency, maybe the inkling, and do you think that was really a pivotal moment?
That's a great question. And I've come to terms with this, is that I think I spend more of my time today trying to remember, I know the memory is not reliable, but who I was between, let's say between the ages of 5 and 10 or 12, who I really was versus where and how I grew up. And I'll make this tangible so you can maybe get your brain around this. I grew up in Southeast London, which is one of the toughest areas in London to grow up around. violence became necessary on a regular basis. Going to school, being Indian, there's a lot of prejudice, racism. So I knew who I wanted to be on the inside, but that version of me wasn't allowed to exist externally in that environment. And so I had to put on a lot of masks, if you will, or, uniforms of who I had to be to exist in that particular environment. And so I found myself, and I found other people like this too, who are spending a lot of their adulthood trying to revert back to the person they were when they were formative children. And so going back to that consistency piece, if you ask me, like, when I was 5, 7, 10 years old, what did I enjoy doing? I enjoyed doing puzzles. I enjoyed, and I'm going to say this, I think statute of limitations over, I enjoyed picking locks, right? I enjoyed focused activity for extended durations of time. I didn't care what was going on. If I'm focused on something, just leave me alone. Let me get to it. And I see myself leaning more and more into that. So I do think there's some disposition to that. Now, having 3 daughters, different kinds of daughters, I see their different genetic makeups, and I know the ones that can focus for extended amount of time and perhaps the one that can't. But, I see more of myself in who I would have been in a different environment, and perhaps working my way to be more of that person.
Wow, I love that. Yeah, isn't it fascinating? 'Cause I think there's a good mix of identifying that, getting back to that because there's a reason. It's something that's at the core of who we are, and also evolving. It's not that I really need to get back to picking locks.
It's a different version of picking locks. A goal is a puzzle to be solved to me, and so that's the way I look at it. Is that okay? This is a goal we have. How can we break it down to smallest parts, and how can we solve it? To me, it's the same mentality of doing any kind of puzzle.
Oh yeah, that's perfect. People are puzzles, and how do we get these people to work together? And what's that unlock there? I think that's fantastic. How do we use that strength in a way so that it's it's not a detriment to you, but you play to that strength? I love this, and I think it should be pretty obvious to folks why I wanted to have this conversation with you.
I appreciate you, Jason, always.
Oh, well, likewise, my friend. And this is awesome. How do people reach out to you, and who should reach out in this day and age, in this current version of Raj Daniels?
I have a superpower and a weakness, 2 sides of the same coin. I'll take one call or one meeting with anyone. Go to my website, rajdaniels.com. There's a form right there. I still get inbounds. I still answer them all. I still take calls. I still take meetings. LinkedIn, obviously. Feel free to reach out. You'll see it on my website. It's been there for 10 years. No transaction, no agenda. Let's just have a phone call or a conversation like 2 human beings.
Fantastic. Raj, thank you so much for being on.
Appreciate you, Jason, always.
Thanks for joining us on Strategy in Action. Remember, true industry leaders don't chase opportunities, they attract them. Want to build your own market gravity? Visit MediaLeadsCo.com. See you next time.